We're back!
Hey everyone!
Happy New Year and Merry Christmas, a little late. I hope you had a great holiday. And we are going to talk about a tough subject. We're going to talk about jealousy in relationships. So many of you have written in about this over the past months, and I have been putting it off for months now because this has been the biggest struggle of our marriage, I would say, my jealousy.
It has been a huge issue.
Yeah.
And I have been an unwitting contributor to said jealousy.
Yeah, and so we have been putting it off, but I think we're ready to share a little bit of what we've experienced and what has helped us through it. So my story starts a long time before James. Growing up, I think I never felt super confident in who I was or how I looked. And then I started dating my first boyfriend, and as you girls know, he was bad news. And so he'd often flirt with other girls on our date nights out, even the waitress, and he was just a terrible boyfriend. So I kind of came out of that relationship a little jaded and expecting guys to not pay attention to me. My greatest fear was that guys would lose interest in me as they got to know me and would always want another girl out there who was prettier because I never felt super good about myself. And so fast forward 10 years, James and I start dating, and whenever there was another pretty girl in the room, I felt like James was just staring at her. Okay, so this kind of runs in his family. His whole family notices other people. They're all very oh, bright colors, ooh, this here, ooh, this, and they just pay attention. But I felt so bad about myself because I'm so you only think I'm beautiful as long as we're alone, and then you're gonna stare at all these other pretty girls when we're out in public. And I felt forgotten, and there were some times when I kind of was forgotten. I feel you never really forgot me, but that's how it felt to me.
Sure.
Yeah. Whereas to James, I don't think he even realized he was doing this.
Yeah, I think what I always thought to myself was, well, I'm not lusting after them. I don't want to be after them. I see them, certain times, I always notice girls with red hair. It's oh, there's a girl with red hair. And it's not oh, she's so hot, I want to be with her. It's just there's someone with red hair.
Yeah. And would just his eyes would just kind of follow her around the room.
Yeah. And so when Tiffany brought this up to me, I was like, what? I don't do that. And eventually, I'm not the most self-aware person in the world. Eventually, I came to realize, yes, indeed, I do that. But then our discussion was, well, what's so wrong with that? I'm not sinning. But I think what I eventually...
There was no, lust involved for him.
Yeah. What I eventually realized is when I do that, it's kind of hurtful to Tiffany. And I love Tiffany. And so I don't want to do things that are hurtful to her. So I've started to do my best to not be awkward, be aware of what's happening to my eyes and my attention. And Tiffany and I have talked a lot about what I can do to help her, especially it's usually for me, it's in a group of people and I'm new people, this is so exciting.
Complete extrovert. My counselor says extroverts have energy that bounces.
So a lot of it is just I've never seen you before, I haven't seen you in a long time, let's catch up, and my attention is focused on that person. And so Tiffany and I have talked a lot about what I can do so that she doesn't feel forgotten by me.
Yeah. So James would grab my hand or put his arm around me or just look over at me and let me know that he was thinking of me with his eyes, and those things were really helpful. And then I realized that I too had to be willing to speak up, kind of, because James was well, why don't you just come over and stand next to me if you're feeling that way? And I was but then I feel I'm losing. There's this competition in girl world, and the other girl knows she's getting all your attention, and then I have to walk over, and it feels like I'm the loser because I'm coming to find my own husband who I shouldn't have to compete for. And he had this really interesting point about victory.
If you're with someone, you're not just talking to one another, you're dating or you're married to them, you've already won. When you arrive on the scene, when you walk up to your significant other talking to a girl, you're sort of saying, I've already won. I'm here to claim the victory.
I'm just kind of walking up and standing next to him.
And be confident. Confidence is attractive. Being really quiet?
Yeah, James told me jealousy is not attractive on a girl. And then I was are you telling me I'm ugly?
No.
So many miscommunications sometimes between guys and girls.
Yeah, and I think a lot of time when your emotions are up, you can't really hear. All you hear is what you want to hear, and all you see is what you want to see. And I think we all do that.
So recently we were at an event and I felt like he was paying a lot of attention to this one girl. So I walked over and I put my arm around him and I just whispered to him, I feel forgotten right now. And afterwards he was like, thank you so much for telling me that. Yeah, just little things like that have helped. And I've also had to realize I have these really high expectations, my husband should have eyes for only me. And what I've been learning through like counseling and through reading even like for women only is that guys notice girls. It's what they do with that noticing is up to them, and that can be good or that can be bad. But the noticing, that immediate noticing, like that's kind of just like part of their DNA. Like they notice girls. And so it helps me to realize like that sometimes my expectations are a little unrealistic. Like my husband's not going to walk around, throw a party and just stare at me the whole time. Maybe if he was an introvert, he was, weird. But James would not do that. He is an extrovert. And so just realizing like where my expectations need to change. So I think some things that have been really helpful for us are realizing like, I think there are two different reasons you can be jealous. I think you can be jealous because the person is legitimately doing something wrong, cheating on you or hurting you or whatever. And like in those situations, I think it's very normal to be jealous. Like the Bible talks about God being jealous for our whole hearts. So I think that that's totally normal and okay. I think there's also a kind of jealousy that comes from our own insecurities. And this has been a big part of jealousy in our relationship is my insecurities, feeling like I'm not going to be good enough. He's not going to keep his attention on me. And this is just confirming all the lies I've believed about myself. That was actually like the main reason I started going to counseling a year ago. And it has been tremendously helpful. Like realizing, being able to pinpoint those insecurities, where they came from. And my counselor likes to say, rewrite the narrative. Like you're telling this very old story that you've told yourself for years and you need to edit it. Like the adult in you needs to edit your narrative of what you're believing about yourself and how you're perceiving your world.
Yeah, because a lot of times, like take a hypothetical scenario, you're at a party, you see your significant other across the room talking very animatedly to a girl. Like we said, there's two kinds of jealousy. There's like legitimate jealousy and there's jealousy that's more based in insecurity. The first thing you have to do is think about, well, which one is it?
Yeah.
And in order to do that accurately, you need to sort of dispassionately observe.
Yeah.
You can't immediately start saying, jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, which
He's
is so
cheating on
easy
me.
to do.
He wants to be with her. Wow, that girl's so pretty. You have to like try to just calm down and observe, one, what is happening with him and this girl?
Yeah.
Is he touching her? Is he like making big eyes at her? You know, is she trying to flirt with him? And then, you know, what happens when you walk up and start talking to them?
Yeah.
You know, some of the times I've hurt Tiffany the most are times when she came up and I was like, hi. Because I was like,
you don't want me here.
and that was a very hurtful thing that I did. And I
think that only happened once.
Oh, it was still hurtful.
That's very hurtful.
So, but like, what does he do when you go up and try to join the conversation? How does he act towards you? So that's the thing. You want to really observe outward, but then you also want to observe inward.
Yes.
You want to see what's going on in my heart. What am I feeling right now? What am I thinking right now? And then, why am I thinking those things? Because a lot of times when you're collecting data, when you like legitimately don't know what's going on, it takes a while for you to form an accurate opinion of what's going on. So if you find you're jumping to conclusions, it's because, like Tiffany said, there's a narrative already in your mind about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're just feeding data into that narrative that like, he doesn't really love me. He doesn't really want to be with me. And this is just fuel for that.
Yeah.
And so regardless of whether you stay with this guy or not, you need to sort of deal with that hurt and that narrative in your life. Because that will keep hurting you.
And I think it was so important for us to talk about it. I think a lot of times people kind of stuff it and don't want to bring it up.
Yeah,
and
it's something you have to deal with. You can't keep it bottled up inside. I think a lot of times, especially if you've been a Christian for a long time, you might think, oh, jealousy is bad.
Yeah.
Let me just pretend that I don't have it and hope it goes away.
Yeah.
Not healthy.
Not gonna help.
You gotta deal with it. We're broken people.
Yeah.
You gotta deal with it.
And when you have that conversation, watch our video about tips for conflict. We have it linked up above. That can be helpful in knowing how to even start the conversation and what not to do to help the conversation go better.
I do have one very important piece of advice. If you start to feel jealous and you're thinking, wow, this is totally irrational, I have this special phrase I share with Tiffany, don't be jelly.
Be melly. Doesn't even make any sense.
Which is quite possibly one of the corniest things I've ever said, and I can't believe I even said that on camera.
You say it all the
kind of
time. You've been dying to say that on camera for like weeks now, months, years.
That's probably true.
But melly stands for mellow. Don't be jelly, be melly. It's so dumb.
Can't believe I got her to keep getting her to say it.
It's so catchy though. I'm like, oh. So I hope that this can be really helpful for you girls. And comment below what helps you through times of jealousy. I would love to hear. Love you girls. See you Friday. Bye.
Bye.